Welcome to Playing the Scales, which is part of the Collingswood Book Festival 2020 COVID virtual edition. The pandemic tried to stop us, but we soldier on in as poetic a way as possible. My name is BJ Ward, and I'll be your host for this event. I'll introduce our four fantastic poets in a moment, but first I want to thank the organizers of the Collingswood Book Festival, particularly Sharon, who runs the thing, Tammy Polino, who was the main person I worked with to organize this. I want to thank Rich behind the technology camera there. I should mention that this event is being recorded. So if you are on screen and you prefer not to be, you just have to hit that little camera icon and you will not be seen. Also, if you have the ability to mute yourself, please hit the mute button so that we don't get any ambient noise during the poet's readings. Here at the beginning, this is part of a larger festival, the Collingswood Book Festival. There is a huge poetry event going on tomorrow from 1 to 4 p.m. and it's live, it's in person, it's social distancing. It's at the Scottish Rite Mansion, and it features one of the winners of the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry, Gregory Pardlow, who grew up right there in South Jersey. I believe he grew up in Willingboro, but he's a member of the faculty at Rutgers Camden in the graduate program for creative writing. And I should mention that event tomorrow at the Scottish Rite Mansion is co-sponsored by the Collingswood Arts Foundation. Here's how our event today is going to work. It's called Playing the Scales. And I've invited these four poets, each of whom the work of whom I respect immensely, and I'm so excited to hear how they play off three themes that I told them about in advance. Each of them will read one poem. My hope is that it's an original poem, but I did say to all of them that if they really prefer to read a poem by someone else to fit a particular theme, they are more than welcome to. I think of Richard Hugo in The Triggering Town, how he wrote, "I have written every great poem I have ever read." You're talking about his sense of ownership. And so if one of these poets feels a sense of ownership of someone else's poem, it feels that personal to them, they are welcome to read it. We're going to go in order, but the order will be toggled throughout the event. After the third go-round, I'll start naming new categories. The poets have no idea what these categories are. It's going to be fun. I'm going to introduce all four poets to begin with. And they will read in the first round in this order. The first poet is Nicole Homer. Her work can be found in Muzzle, The Offing, The Collagist. It's been featured on Poem a Day and many other places. She's a fellow of The Watering Hole and Callaloo and an editor at Black Nerd Problems. She served as the 2018 Dartmouth Poet in Residence at the Frost Place and was recipient of a fellowship this year, 2020, from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. Her collection, Pecking Order, was an Eric Hoffer Poetry Award winner. Online, she's, you can find her, the @ at Real Nicole Homer. Offline, she's working on her next project, which is called Fast Tale. After Nicole, Christine E. Salvatore will read. She teaches literature and writing in the MFA program at Rosemont College. Terrific program. Stockton University also has the honor of having her on the faculty, the adjunct faculty there. And she's a public high school teacher in South Jersey. Her poetry has appeared in many journals, including Pank, the Cortland Review, Diode, the Literary Journal, the Southeast Review, and tons of other places. Her work is also included in the craft book, More Challenges for the Delusional, and featured in the art book Mother Monument by Holly Trossel Brigham and Marianne Miller. After Christine reads in this first round, you'll hear from Paul Victor Winters. Paul Victor Winters, who teaches at Egg Harbor Township High School in Southern New Jersey and works for Murphy Writing at Stockton University and the poetry program of the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation. He's published poems in an array of journals over decades and has amassed a fine pile, these are his words, a fine pile of rejection notes for manuscripts over the years. Didn't say this in his bio note, but Billy Collins chose his first manuscript, Muscle and Bone, to receive an award, and that's how that book got published. The final poet here is Lamont B. Steptoe. Lamont hasn't shown up yet to our electric waiting room, but it is my sincere hope he gets here because I really want him to be part of this. He'll be reading fourth in the first round. He is a native of Pittsburgh. He's a poet, he's a photographer, he's a publisher. He's a Vietnam veteran. Lamont Steptoe has edited and published 3 collections of the late South African poet and activist Dennis Brutus. A graduate of Temple University, founder of Whirlwind Press, and the 2005 recipient of the American Book Award, and a whole bunch of other distinguished awards, including an anthology of work about Lamont and about Lamont's poetry that just recently was published, I think, a couple years ago by the Moonstone organization. So welcome Nicole, welcome Christine, welcome Paul Victor, and welcome Lamont. I hope you're here. Let us begin our first round. The theme is science. Science. We'll hear from those 4 poets in that order, and at the end, I'll be back on your screen announcing the next round. So, science, and we'll begin with Nicole Homer.
Hello, everyone. So thank you for having me. I interpreted science through a speculative lens, and I'm going to give kind of a blanket content warning that the poem I'm going to read deals with sexual assault. It's abstract unraping. In such that having been raped is a fact, and further, an unalterable state of being, the argument can be made that the process is doomed at worst or theoretical at best, but unaccomplishable either way. Practitioners face challenge from within and without the industry. Their task is twofold: name the thing and obliterate its name. Some, including test subjects and technicians, question the utility of obliteration. Test subjects are often valued in their own communities for naming and being named. The performative act of public surviving, sometimes labeled victimhood, healing, or redacted, would be non-ironically rendered impossible or invisible if the procedure is successful. Note then that if the test subject is known as a survivor or as brave, or if survivorship is a foundational element of their personhood, precautions must be taken to prevent collapse. Conversely, and more critically, if survivorship is not named as a cornerstone, its removal or obliteration may reveal it to have been so. The results in those cases, thus far, have been far more devastating to the test subject than those who could identify its significance. The test subject in these cases have, after the procedure, embraced the facthood argument, and no further testing could be done without inflicting damage. Here, the technicians reported spontaneous and uncontrollable emotional outbursts that persisted from 5 minutes, 47 seconds to 2 hours, 12 minutes, 37 seconds. The reports, stained as they were, note that the test subjects grew impatient with the technicians and left before the latter stopped crying. Thank you.
Nicole, that was an amazing poem. This one's, I feel a little bit silly almost in comparison, but it is about the art of forgiving. And I was thinking more of psychology here, but also about nature. The art of forgiving. I've heard it's an act that once achieved can be forgotten about, moved past. Not like cleaning at all. Today, I'm clearing the house of spider webs, all those carefully laid plans extinguished, brushed aside, deemed unworthy. They cling to picture frames and corners, chair legs and banister spokes. My vacuum and duster root deep into every crevice. Like a skeleton in the closet, web after web reminds us of what cannot be seen by others, of what we insist must be swept away to continue our daily existence. In the night, I dream of the persistence of spiders, strand after strand, alien to disappointment or defeat. Each corner a clean slate to begin again the work that spiders must do. In the morning, in every crevice, new webs have been woven.
I'll read a poem called The Waitress. I like coffee. I must tell you there exists a celestial waitress. I try to tip generously. I never seem to finish my cup until it begins to cool. I savor. The waitress is slow to refill, always fussing with her mousy, abundant hair, though I believe I heard her say something about a bottomless cup policy. Consider policy. Calculate the precise amount of sugar and cream needed to defeat bitterness. The question is the answer. This is true for most things. Love, for one. Consider process. Consider the water cycle, then consider love. One step in a process after another. Condensation, precipitation, evaporation, and so forth. Like a bottomless cup of coffee, endlessly filling and emptying. Oh, I can drink a lot of coffee, and I prefer it light and sweet. And I have many questions and a lot going on. Don't be fooled. I like to watch the process of coffee brewing, and I like to watch my sweet waitress, who is kind but seems to think I've had my fill, even though I'm close to empty. I must say I support a bottomless policy. I tap my spoon to the cup like a jovial wedding guest. I'm only now getting started. She's jotting something down. The question is, how will she manage to calculate my unreckonable bill?
Thank you, Nicole, Christine, Paul, Victor. What a great way to begin this. Now the order will toggle a little. Christine will go first. Our next subject is music. And again, we'll start with Christine Salvatore.
So thank you, BJ. I was going back and forth about what to read for this one. I have a lot of poems from my childhood. Poems that I wrote about my childhood that are full of Bee Gees songs that my mother listened to and the Doors that my father listened to. And I settled on this one, which is I'm not even sure it's a music poem, but it felt like the right one. It's called Metaphysical Fugue. Gravel and air vibrate into existence, connect each piece of matter, then dissolve and reform into other membranes. The sidewalk below me, the dark buildings I pass. In nights starless and bereft of revelry or wishes, I am my surest creation. I maintain my staccato steps with no destination except a place of belief in something other than my brittle organs. Does fear fall away in the face of infinite faith? My mourning clothes have lost their somber tone, so much to mourn, so much to still be in awe of. Every haloed street corner or disappearing alley is another movement to take or not to take, to stay on straight or turn. But there is a constant loop back into a world of so many options. To help or not to help, to harm or not to harm. And the vibrations that connect us all from New York to Indonesia have catapulted tsunamis and wars, misunderstandings, and too much zeal for the wrong reasons. Is anyone ever sure of more than their own limbs? One foot in front of the other, too aware that aberrations precede solidity. I'm humming a tune, and it goes like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. That was Christine Salvatore. Next up is Paul Victor Winters.
I liked that, Christine. I especially like the ending. That's cool. Here's a poem that is about sound, anyway. That counts. Lull. Lull. The neighbor's mower or a too fast car on an empty street at night, or a wall of humming insects summer night. Not a jagged sound, but something solid and sizable. Something with a door in it, a closed door. Sound that one could walk into like a wall of fog. Sound that can be touched. Maybe some machinery from the barn. Maybe the landlord's power washer against the aluminum siding. Maybe something with little discernible parts, but a sound that can do you in. Steady faucet leak, something that sounds like a father snoring. Something that reminds you of something it is not. Something that catches you and pulls tight the zip cuffs. Something that sounds too real.
Thank you, Paul Victor. Nicole Homer.
Thank you, that was lovely. I think I was in the same boat deciding poems up until just now. So we're gonna go with this one. This is Ars Poetica of My Grandmother's Bedpan. Every morning and afternoon and evening, if not every hour, I've held what a sick woman could not any longer. Come touch the sterile curves of me, warmed by her belabored death. I'm made useful by traitorous legs and weakest muscles. Everyone who handles me tells her with their bowed shoulders and forced all-tooth smile, I wish I knew how to do this without doing this. I wish I knew how to do this without you knowing. Her fingers could make an organ praise God once. Once she knew the word for piano and daughter. Look at her search the room of strangers for them now. I am holding them. I am a bridge. Watch me take her home, one embarrassing piece at a time, until her face is nothing but bones, who do not remember sweet potato pie, or collard greens, or oyster stuffing, or fruit salad spiked with sugar, and when no one was looking, liquor, or chitlins, or tripe, or the lips of children anxious for quarters and stories, who do not see me hiding under the bed because she still knows their names, knows my name, and it is not death, not dying, not now, not yet. So we listen to Lou Rawls croon silky about kisses and teardrops, like it's news to us.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was the second category of music. The third category is justice. And we will actually begin with Paul Victor Winters.
Thank you. Here is a pre-pandemic poem. It's called 2019. It's hard to remember that we had issues, problematic issues, even in 2019. Just and they're not always, not all the different necessarily. This is particularly about ICE detention centers, but 2019. There was a bellow from the sky, or perhaps the eaves and rafters, and it said, "Thou shalt not cage children." And there were those among us who laughed it off. "Love thy neighbor," said the wind, which smelled of stale urine and illness. "Love thy neighbor and every thine thing. Thou art they." And a voice from the dirt beneath us said, "Seek out justice where it needs to be sought. Thou shalt do the thing that needs thine doing." But there was a talent show on television, a sale on cosmetics, ads for things made cheaply and marketed well. The wind shook and said, "Hey, you guys." But there was something covetable for sale online, and we hoped for free, fast delivery. We were downloading apps and shaking fists at those poorer than us. Phantoms scudded back and forth, laden with the scent of dark money on their breath. We ignored the voice from the sky, you know, gelato and sitcoms, monster trucks and yoga classes, Instagram and Pornhub. Verily I say unto you, said the wind, or perhaps the sills, ye do the harm to one, ye do the same to the world. We celebrated Labor Day, Memorial Day, Veterans Day. You bring me to harm, the soil cried. But there were fireworks and barbecues, summer weddings and cable shows about summer weddings. And everything thine thingy thing we did unto one, we did into perpetuity. Spittle in the corners of our mouths, shit on the soles of our shoes, which had been made by small, impoverished, enerverate fingers far away.
Thank you, Paul Victor. Nicole Homer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, thank you so much for reading that. I was torn, but I feel like Paul Victor made my decision for me. This is a poem from 2016. And as part of my process, I kind of made it a habit to be writing a poem every week to submit to kind of an online thing where they published a poem every week about the news. And it just was part of my writing ritual. It's called The Deadline. The deadline is becoming a ritual. I am, I guess, a woman who needs to know when I should stop writing this poem. It's a tool, a trick, and I am, I guess, a woman who needs to know the deadline drawn around us. It's a tool, a trick, and a chorus of voices, headlines, hashtags. The deadline drawn around us, a convenience store. Beyond that point, we're liable to die. A chorus of voices, of headlines, of hashtags. I know this song. I sang it last week. The convenience store. Beyond that point, we're liable to die. See, this week, his name was Alton, but I know the song. I sang it last week, when his name was dead and black and in police custody. This week, his name was Alton, but maybe I'm cheating. Maybe I've written this before, when his name was dead, black, and in police custody. How can an editor even begin to tell if maybe I'm cheating? Maybe I've written this before. The deadline is becoming a ritual. How can an editor even begin to tell when I can stop writing this poem?
Thank you, Nicole. Christine Salvatore.
Okay, these are such amazing poems. BJ, I was thinking that the topic here in many ways is really injustice, right? Because that's what we write about, because that's what there's so much of. And since you guys were reading poems from sort of pre-2020, where there's certainly a lot we could say, I'm gonna read a poem from 2011 that is just as true now. Part one. In India in 1947, the people are moving away from their homes, away from each other. And what would they carry with them? The household wares of Muslims and Hindus are indistinguishable, and yet they march on to different sides of a newly divided city. 2. See this hand in front of you? A man's hand. Not a this or a that, but a man, his hand worn hard by work or worry. Not raised in protest, but now lowered by a gun, shot from a hand not unlike his own. 3. My student tells me she cannot even wave to a Muslim friend on the street. Her parents would chastise and punish her for this terrible shame. She is 17, and this is America, 2011. 4. What they carry with them, the traditions, the anger, the prejudice, will they carry forever in the hands of men and women and the children they raise? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Paul Victor. What a wonderful first 3 rounds that was. If anyone would like to show applause on this Zoom technology, I'm still getting used to it myself, but at the bottom you'll see a little circle that says more. If you click that, you'll be able to clap if you want, I guess, virtually here. So thank you. And now it gets a little different.
They can see you eating, so I'm going to turn my
You can see me, I hope. Rich, actually, would we be able to pull up Paul Victor, Christine's, and Nicole's camera just as I introduce the next theme? The idea being that I'm playing off of you guys too. Nicole, you're going to be the first reader because Lamont hasn't shown up. And 2 poems ago, you mentioned Lou Rawls, so it just flowed. Your first theme for all 3 of you is flightless birds. Flightless birds. Good luck to all of you. I'll give you a moment or two to organize your thoughts. Nicole, this round, the burden is mostly on you, I realize. But I think you can handle it, my friend. Now, I think of, Charlie Parker's the one who's known as Bird, but all those great musicians to me are kinds of flightless birds, So of course, they're full of flight, right? They just don't flap around in the sky, but there's a lot of flight in Lou Rawls. So, Nicole, thanks for that theme. Good luck with it. Ladies and gentlemen, Nicole Homer. Nicole, I believe you're muted.
There you go. I'm going to apologize to Christine because this is a very short poem, but it's the only poem that I have that has any sort of bird in it that I can think of. And I'm also going to kind of reiterate the content warning that I offered before my first poem. This is after a Jeff Whitney poem, and the title is The Shortest Lie I Was Ever Told. Yes, I will. I want to. Limbs tight, taut, contracted. No is a luxury for girls whose brothers are unmuscled and meek and forgiving. A man can break a no. Its bones are hollow as a bird's. He ruined the sky. Stars slurred against the night. No is just a damaged trachea and an almost radial break away from yes. Bared teeth. The road from one to the other is not scenic. I can fly if I need to. I lied. The shortest lie was no, spit out and shoved back in. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Next up, Christine Salvatore. Theme, flightless birds.
Trying to start my video. It's not responding. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay. Now you get to see what my students see all day long on Zoom, me like reacting to things they can't see. I have a lot of poems about birds, which I just realized right now. And the reason why many of them are flightless is because quite a few of them are dead. So I'm sorry about that. So I chose this one, which the flightless bird in the poem is really the woman in the poem. So she can't fly. So it's called Engendering. The air is full of moisture, and the moisture rains down on the roof. So within these walls, under these eaves, there's a chill as brittle as bones. Again, the mist covers the view, and the evening is solid, hiding itself, waiting. It is thick and still as I bury myself from a cold knot on the surface. Stillness presses the walls, no way in yet, and I turn away but still see. What will happen to all of this? What is it just out of reach, almost close enough to touch? Stillness pressing the walls in my mind too full, heavy, moisture logged. Looking up at the ceiling above, restless in my shell, wet wings pressed into my sides, and silence, that keeps asking, where? Where is there to go? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was Christine Salvatore. Paul Victor Winters.
Good challenge. There is a species of duck that is flightless called the steamer duck. And this poem imagines the Garden of Eden. Steamer duck in the Garden of Eden. She flew until the young Cain's shot brought her down into the marsh of the Garden of Cause, and whistles ringing, plump plums dropping to the sandy earth like waterlogged fruit bats, where mother was always shamed and full-bellied. The duck's midair movements were like a pale ribbon in a breeze. Cain could not ignore it, gifted as he was with human bloodlust and jealousy. His body, delivered here on the viable earth, was a mere bag of rage, incestuous impulse, blood and fibers. Why am I, he asked the sky, its bright vessels buzzing and hovering and then departing. Nothing, said the then vacant heavens, nothing more and nothing of note. How to recognize a dream from a full-bodied reality? Feathers and apricots, a cow's gassy bellow, smell of storm. Damn the steamer her flight, he thought, and damn the mole his sight. He buckled equine knees. He boxed the oversized heads of cattle. He went on a spree, coaxed the voice out of the crustaceans, damned swine to awkwardness. Cocksure and trembling, this first hijacker, first barbarian, first to go, first to leave a bruise.
Wow. Well, I applaud all three of you. That was phenomenal, especially not knowing what the subject was in advance. Fantastic, all three, thank you. Christine, you're up first for this next round. In the poem you just read, you mentioned a theme that kept coming up was enclosures, you know, the walls, the shell. And in my experience, the only way to defeat a wall is a doorknob. So your theme is doorknobs for this next round. Doorknobs. I'll give you a minute to think about that.
Definitely going to need a minute.
It's all right. It's all right. I'll pass the time by telling one of my favorite jokes that I've heard in the last 2 months.
Uh-oh.
That's what did one math book say to the other math book? We have problems. Oh, yes, we do. I am wasting as much time as I can, Christine.
Okay, I'm just going to go for it.
All right, the theme is doorknobs. Our first poet this round is Christine Salvatore.
Okay, thinking, I don't think that I have a single poem that has doorknobs. And then I was trying to think of a doorknob in a metaphorical sense, as BJ was trying to lay it out for us. And that didn't go well. So I'm going to read you a poem. The first one that sort of came to mind when you said doorknob. So I don't know why. Okay, so this is a poem. It's about New Orleans, where I used to live for about 5 years. Pre-Katrina, I lived there, and it's called Safety. Suddenly, Lake Pontchartrain ripples up to stone steps you meet that substitute for a shore, and it's late and you shouldn't be here because bad things happen to average people all the time in this city, which you try not to read about in the papers, but people tell you anyway. So-and-so who owned the Vera Cruz bar on Rampart got beat to death with a baseball bat last night, but it's not that that's keeping you awake tonight. Nothing like that. It's just you were lying in bed, alarm clock set and everything ready for tomorrow, when all at once the walls moved closer to the bed. The city was too quiet. Then a train whistle came so suddenly and loud. You were up and dressed and in the car before you even realized you thought you were running for your life. And now this lake so vast it provides a horizon with a shore nowhere in sight. And you are not so easily convinced you were safer back in your apartment with all the doors locked. Got the door.
Yeah, fantastic. At the end, say, where's she going? It's great. Thank you. Excellent. That's Christine Salvatore. Paul Victor Winters, your theme is doorknobs.
I had lucked out. By chance, I had a poem about a steamless species of bird. Here is a poem titled Doorknobs, by chance. Good job, BJ, good. So here's a poem called Doorknobs. In this room, a recurring dream of wild boar. In the next room, ancient ruins, dust-stormed and calcified, chalky to the touch. But someone is turning the doorknob. In this room, here and now. In the next, everything that had been hidden or stifled. And someone is turning the glass knob. Someone or something. It is rational and frowns like a father. Twists the knob slowly but firmly. Some long-toothed, woolly thing. Recurring dream about to break and enter. Something about to open the wrong door.
Thank you, Paul Victor. Nicole Homer.
I need Paul Victor's luck. We're going to choose to interpret doorknob as something you go through. And so this is a poem about someplace you shouldn't be. Taking the creek home. To the right, the fastest, cleanest way home. I went wrong. The serpentine asphalt of Sunnyfield Terrace, marking the very edge of Fairyland Estates where we lived, though the sign was gone by the time my family moved in. Just the 100 or so houses and the asbestos shingles and the neat square lot of us remained. Families mostly. Tired parents, dollhouses and G.I. Joes. Released from Green Grove Elementary, me and the boys, my older brothers, their sweaty, thick-tongued friends, went to the creek, a slice of unkempt. It was water and trees and grass, and we were not supposed to be there, or I wasn't supposed to. No, my mother had said often, and recounted pulling a blood-fat tick off my tender head. No, I'm not scared, I said. If you were scared, you had to carry the book bags, like a pack mule, or a maid, or a girl. You had to walk up Sunnyfield, parallel to the creek alone, and wait. The boys were never kind, so neither was I. If you were afraid, you should have taken the easy way home. My mother was right. The second tick she found was swole to bursting. How could you not feel it? I don't know why, but we burned it in the sink, an amateur blood magic. The head of a match pressed against and into its body until the heat was its body, was ash, was gone. I guess we wanted to pretend the danger in the tall grass I was insistent on wading through could be solved. No one was responsible for the creek. The town said it belonged to the developer, who had developed all those adorably named streets, who in turn said it belonged to the town or else to the residents, who in turn didn't want to manicure anything else. Didn't they pay taxes and pay mortgages? They had their own lawns to worry about, so yes, the grass was high, and yes, there was nothing but shadows there where I wasn't supposed to be, and yes, I knew better, and yes, there had been a tick, and yes, I saw my blood in its mouth, and yes, it wasn't the only one, and yes, I went anyway, and yes, I was warm and in the wrong place, and so why wouldn't it find my blood again? And no, I said, I'm not scared.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you, Paul Victor. Thank you, Christine. You guys are nailing these. Let us begin the next round. Paul Victor Winters is the first poet. Maybe we could pull up Paul Victor's camera there. Paul Victor, people are going to think I set this up with you in mind, that you've been nailing these things with your titles.
What are you going to throw at me?
Well, your last poem, you began with a wild boar and you moved to calcification. I thought, what? I mean, this is the jazz part, right? You're giving me these notes. Now I play off them. I give them to you. It's call and response. I love the notion of these two things next to each other in a poem. And I'm going to challenge you to read a poem that has to do with one or the other, or the extra challenge is a poem that has both in there. That might be a little too hard. And that's for all three of our poets today. The two
Both?
themes, one or the other, I want wildness and or calcification. Wildness, calcification. One or the other, or both. Wish you luck. You're first. Next would be Nicole, and then Christine would close out this round. Paul Victor winners.
Well,
Good luck.
you're trying to stop me. How about a poem that has outdoorsy, not wilderness, but outdoorsiness, garden outdoorsiness. I'll try this. It's a poem called New Year's Day. He slept 7 days and had 7 dreams. He fell asleep in a yellow house and woke in a garden of swords. He dreamt and figured his dream significant, but there is no difference between this and that. He was an ant, the king of ants. He was weak but felt strong. He fell asleep on the eve of a new year. He fell asleep under a quarter moon and woke under a half moon. He dreamt he was the king of ants, but he was an earwig. He dreamt in sepia. He thought himself kind. You see, nothing means anything. Cups, wands, swords, pentacles. This guy thought himself a hierophant. He dreamt himself a hornet and woke to call himself emperor. He misremembered 7 nights. He was cyclopic, but dreamed himself handsome. He thought he might spread his gospel, but he might not even be real. Who's to say? There are silk malls and silverfish in a sword garden. We like to think images mean things. We like when emotions marry words. We sleep an 8th day, dreaming cups and wands, dreaming full new moons.
Yeah, that works. That works great. Thank you, Paul Victor. Nicole Homer, wildness and or calcification.
I love that phrase, dreamt himself a hornet. So I actually did have something for this, so thank you. This is called Lithopedians in Flesh, and it's loosely based on a true story. A lithopedian is a stone baby, dead inside its mother. It calcifies. It was 1948. Her name is not important. The war had been over for 3 years. This is what the history books will tell you, as though peace is a sudden thing, a light switch, or a veil dropped over a country. The newspapers will not mention her. Nothing about this 32-year-old woman or the kicking she harbored inside her. How it was a soft, insistent tapping at first, its own war drum. How her hand circled her belly like a battleship or bird of prey, a hand, a woman's hand, casting a spell. No, they will only announce peace, as though quiet is something every woman would want. The tapping was insistent until it wasn't. When the doctors used the word dead, she did not become someone else. She remained what she was, poor, survivor, woman. When they said operation and expensive, her hand circled the new graveyard like a vulture. Leave it be, she said, and they did. Because it's easy and simple, I want to believe nature offers us just 2 options, rot or harden. It is 1994. The tree in my backyard is full of plums. Some of them hard green stones, some of them sweet and black and burst, split open on the lawn. Any old woman will tell you to ripen a thing, put it in the dark. a bag will do, or a cupboard with a door that closes, they will also tell you the sweetest plum is the one on the verge of rot. I was 16. I knew some things grew in the dark. I did not know I was made of dark. I was 16, sweet and black and burst. The old women did not tell me that we ripen hard, that the body can close like a small green fist around anything it deems rotten, that this is how pearls and memories and women are made. In the 17th gestational week, the hardening, the soft growing cartilage architecture slowly starts to become bone. The old women never told me when it will stop. The old men say that only the strong survive, but I am a woman. I know Goliath dies, and I imagine some small, frail woman was paid to wash his massive body before his funeral. It is the resourceful, the determined who live long enough to nurse their young. I am not 16 anymore. I am not sweet to bursting anymore, but how that year still walks my hallways, how it curls up inside me like a smooth and sunken stone. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. That was Nicole Homer. Christine Salvatore. Wildness and/or calcification.
Well, I was sort of between two, but Nicole made the decision for me. I don't know if she'll see any kind of connection here, but I felt it. So it's a poem called Betrayal. It's got a little bit of wilderness and wildness in it, I think. Betrayal. The dogwood startles me this morning as I mistake its flower-laden branches for snow. Disoriented again, I need flame in order to rise. I strike a match for every misunderstood thing in the forest, joined forces with twigs and leaves and deer. Don't tell me not to cry. Don't tell me the wind isn't my father. I am all I've ever made myself to be, down on my knees now, elbow deep in ash and soil, where robins ignore my persistent gardening and wait for rain. I cannot mimic their faith. I am mistaking apples for oranges. There's no telling what I'm capable of now. Sorry, it was a short one.
That's quite all right. What it lacked in length, it made up for in depth. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, well, here we go. We are going to go into another round. Nicole is going to be first. Nicole, that poem you read with both wildness and calcification in it, full of so many great nouns, it's hard to choose which one I want to use. In second place was Light Switch, but that's not what we're going with. Your theme, my friend, is newspapers. Newspapers.
Okay.
So, newspapers. Black and white and red all over. Here we
Do you have any
go.
jokes?
You want a
Now-
joke? You want
now
a
do
joke?
one.
Okay, all right, I'll tell you a joke. It's only fair. Why don't lobsters share their food? Because they're shellfish. That's all. I think we just lost most of the audience, but I did it for you, Nicole.
I appreciate that.
All right, Nicole. The order will be Nicole, Christine, and Paul Victor. The theme is newspapers. Good luck.
Okay. I am going to interpret that to mean things that I might get in the mail, because that's what I could find during one joke's worth of things. So this poem is called Prayer, and it is inspired by a line by Araceli Girmay, which is, "Here's your first question to the gods. What now? Now that the babies are born and the car is paid off. Now that the dishes all match a respectable but modest bone white set from Bed Bath & Beyond. What now, God of 20% off? Now that you've made meatloaf and something decent of yourself. What now, God of aprons and universities? Now that you lost the weight, got the blood pressure down, avoided heart disease, at least for now. What now, God of multivitamins and WebMD? Now that your daughter named you Workosaurus on her list of imaginary dinosaurs. Now that your daughter named you absent in the family portrait she drew. What now, God of stick figures and omissions? What now, God of daughters? Now that you can maintain a somewhat manicured lawn, keep a job long enough to make yourself difficult to fire. Now that no one debates you when you call yourself a grown-ass woman. Now that your mama calls you to ask your opinion. What now, God of vows and eventual divorces? Now that you get your nails done every 2 weeks and pay your bills 2 days early. Now that your credit score will let you finance the middle-class dreams you have never had. Now that what I want is less, is fewer, is an uncluttered floor. What now, God of bloody cuticles? What now, God of 1,000 disappointments? What now, God of bad choices? What now, God of the only tools I had? What now, God of the only thing I knew how to build? Now that I'm in therapy, in yoga, in the gym at 6 a.m. Monday through Friday, what now, God of alarm clocks and sunrises? Now that I sleep alone, now that I sneak into my daughter's room at night to whisper in her ear, choice, choice, choice. What now, God of dead or ailing parents? Now that the kids are too young to understand and old enough to be okay, I guess. What now, God of okay, I guess, of maybe, of no right answers. Now that the curtains are in a pile on the floor and the wizard is just a woman with cellulite and a C-section scar and a degree and the machine's cogs are showing. What now, God of my one good enough body and my only life? Now that I'm here, what now, God of here? God of now, God of this line of questioning, now that I've named all my gods and seen how small they are. Now what? Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Wow, what music in that. Christine Salvatore, newspapers.
Okay. The sort of passion that Nicole read that with made me think of a couple of poems, but I'm going to go with this one, which is actually kind of an early draft of a poem, so I'm a little nervous about reading it, but it has the word news in it. Gardens. The landscape that eviscerates my dreams is devoid of flowering trees. Instead, stark dead things wave their bony branches. In the morning light of my garden, I am certain that nothing will ever be beautiful again. Am I sleepwalking my way through these days of violence and no remorse? Am I wrong to turn off the evening news after the second mention of a dead child? The static won't translate until my friend is in Israel when they find those 3 boys' bodies and rockets fire over the Gaza Strip again. The Americans changed their hotels when the rioting got too close. But my friend's photos of the trip are beautiful. No angry faces, no grieving fathers, just landscapes, ancient buildings, a camel or 2 here and there. She was glad to be home again, still unable to shake the image of the road to Hahul, where her Mora rehearsed again the need for the Toraheim and continuity. Her lens captured the world we want to see, not those boys' bodies or the burned one that came after. Perhaps beauty can live again if I only focus on this dogwood, on these Bradford pears. Maybe this bright myrtle is all I need of faith. Thank you.
Terrific, thanks. Hard to believe that's an early draft. That's wonderful, Christine, thank you. Paul Victor Winters, your theme, newspapers.
Well, let's not call it a theme, but here's a poem that includes a newspaper. I tend not to write poems that are too overtly or directly personal, and this one might be, but and it's older, but let's try it. Passenger. I am still unsure how it is I made my way into that back seat, but I know it was you who drove. The cigarettes I smoked were not my usual brand, but who knows why. And I know I kept my head cocked backward and to the side against the car door window, each road bump a tap to the temples. I counted power lines and street lamps, but cannot recall my counts, which in retrospect must have been wholly inaccurate and more importantly, inconsequential. It's what I did, however, count to keep the mind working. But then the torn vinyl of the back seat, the yellow foam seat innards escaping, the whole car smelled of boot leather and sweat somehow. And I forgot who was driving, where we'd been. Trees in Pennsylvania look much like trees in Indiana. It may be significant to note that you drove, but I cannot explain that significance. The way I wake from a dream and cannot piece together the players, the locale, the odd props and dialogue. Mother, Jimmy Carter, gas station, copper piping, skeleton key, pig Latin. Everything means something. I suppose, however, departure point and destination may not matter. It is just the smell of boot leather, the yellow foam against my fingertips, the stale mothballs and crumpled newspaper on the backseat floor of the Buick, chunks of truck tire collected from a roadside resting at my feet, Zippo lighter with someone else's initials carved in the metal, right where the thumb rests. It is just the unexpected street lamp, red glow of store signs. It is just the undersides of treetops, the quick retinal burn of an unexpected street lamp, red glow of store signs, your voice belting out Woody Guthrie tunes along with the radio. The way the moon appears when one's head is tilted in that direction, how the stout moon in the gaunt sky follows all the long way, whomever the driver, whatever the route.
Thank you, Paul Victor Winters. Once again, terrific. And I love the diversity of those three poems, and yet they all kind of grew out of the suggestion of newspaper. Well done. Our next order will be Christine, followed by Paul Victor, then Nicole. Christine, something that keeps coming up in your poems that I noticed. In the poem you read in response to doorknobs, with the walls and the shell, you also had bones. And then in this poem, you had bony branches. And I like how you keep kind of getting back to the center of a being right there. So the theme for all three of you, bones. What can you do in response to bones? Christine, you're going to start.
I'm ready.
Excellent. Right in your wheelhouse, right?
That's right. I was like, I think I've read all the bone poems, but I haven't. And people are going to think I only write about birds because this is also about birds, which is just not true at all. But anyway, okay, I'm ready. All right. This poem is called Nests, as in like a nest, plural nests. Part 1. Because we were always in need of distraction, this year it is the birds we want to know all about. Call each thing by its right name: American goldfinch, house sparrow, Carolina wren. We get closest to the wren as she builds her bowl-like nest next to our front door, lays 5 eggs, startles each time we come and go. We forget about birds for a while, but don't dispose of the nest because it's trying to tell us something, I think, about our divided home. Call each thing by its right name: married, separated, divorced. Unlike the wren, we cannot move on. 2. I am trying to write about a bird and a nest. I am trying to write about the nest. The bird could be the me that I want to be, who understands a futile endeavor, who abandons the nest, who knows when it's time to take flight. If there was any grieving in her empty bones, she took it elsewhere in the end, away from the home she made, away from the failure that found her. Will a distant bough, even broken, still support her song? Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Whew. You get the prize too for following up the quickest. I mean, that was amazing.
Good.
Thank you. That was Christine Salvatore, Paul Victor Winters is next. The theme or subject is bones.
Now, as I see it, the tooth is a bone, and there are teeth here. This is a history of revenge. The pharaoh ordered construction of 60 water vessels. Ghost ants nestled between the wooden joints, and funeral temples were built stone block by stone block. The pharaoh's children were solemn. 7 meager cows devoured 7 fat, fair cows. 40 ships carried cedar logs. Shoddy pyramids were erected and misshapen obelisks. Even the dead paid attention to the stars. Bride prices were paid and clan gifts were paid. It was a unified kingdom. Foot soldiers slept in a barracks under a spell of grief and consequence. On the palace floor, baby teeth cracked under Pharaoh's heavy foot. A battalion of webworms fought a battalion of sawflies. A rhetorical flourish, then the stomping of feet, the gnashing of teeth, plague of boll weevils, the playing of festival songs. The headsman cast verdicts, and does still, while ships carry cedar logs, and the children of Pharaoh's children are cast out, and a slow, tired festival song hums, an unending hymn of continuity and harm. The next battalion marches into the grand old hall.
Thank you, Paul Victor. Thank you so much. Okay, and that brings us to Nicole Homer. Theme is bones.
Interpreted broadly, the implication of bones. A reliable watch. One more deer, so it's today. For the last time, it inhaled and stepped, hoofed a pavement on what I will call yesterday. Now I pass 5 bodies on my way to work. Last month, 3. Next month, perhaps 7. There's a season to these things. Each body a clock. Before that one had 2 eyes, and then a day later, 1. Now the sockets are empty, save the newest churning and hungry life. Time is not subtraction. The eyes still exist. The body too stubborn to cease is redistributed. There must be a second when the deer is dissected by the yellow lines of the road and it can go in one direction or the other. It doesn't. I want to commit like that, certain, or uncertain but sure-footed, then a neck so broken I can see through the impossible angle of fur and skin to the road and the expanding Byzantine blood halo. But only for nothing stays still, not me in my car or the well-fed turkey vultures, not even the deer, those soft, furred and maggoted units of time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Nicole Homer, wonderful way to end the bones theme. We have time for one more round. And this will start with Paul Victor Winters.
Oh boy.
Go up to Nicole Homer and end with Christine Salvatore. So Paul Victor, you know, that last poem you read in response to bones, you know, with the pharaohs, the cedar logs, all that. Forgive me if I don't remember the exact phrase, but you had shoddy pyramids. I believe you had misshapen obelisks. And that was followed by people getting paid, like people being paid off almost. And yet it was a united kingdom, a unified kingdom, I think you said, a unified kingdom. That, to me, is all coded language for New Jersey. Your theme, this final round, is the great garden state that people love to hate, the land I'm from, the kingdom of New Jersey.
Okay, this works. BJ and I happen to be from the same hometown. So this might not be so much a New Jersey poem as it is perhaps a Washington, New Jersey poem, Warren County, Washington, New Jersey poem. I'm told that Rich is also from there. It mentions, for me, it feels like a New Jersey poem, so that's good enough. And the poem is called Imagine. Imagine being lost at sea, only it's not a sea and you aren't lost, just sort of sad. It's a small town with a hardware store and an empanada shop. You're either 14 or 54, but it doesn't matter. The litter in the street gutter is much the same. Something's askew in the cosmos. Hint of rain in the air, misaligned heavenly bodies. Imagine the sum of your melancholia automatically deducted from your paycheck. You see, Monday is a perpetual afternoon. February turns into autumn, 1994 becomes 2018, and then it's St. Patrick's Day all over again. And the good cholesterol is taking the bad cholesterol out for drinks. But it's only Thursday, and loan payments drop water balloons from hotel windows, next to a hardware store, next to St. Cloud's Motel, where alcoholic grandfathers go to die. Something's askew. And Friday waits at the pizza shop counter with bad news in his linty pockets.
Thank you so much, Paul Victor. Yeah, that's a New Jersey poem. Nicole Homer, New Jersey.
Unmute myself. Okay. So this is a really early draft and I have not read it out loud in over a year. So this will be an adventure for us all. Cool. When you live in New Jersey, everyone has jokes. Everyone met a guy from Jersey once. Everyone heard an accent pour out of a mouth like coffee once. Everyone knows it's ridiculous that we dub ourselves the Garden State. Ain't you never seen The Sopranos? Ain't you never heard the Fugees? Nothing green but tourists here. We didn't go to the beach that summer. This was nothing new. Black folks don't go to the beach. What I look like trying to get a tan. But that summer, white folks didn't go either. The ocean, without warning, started coughing up needles. Without warning means that with a very basic understanding of currents and or consequences, it was inevitable. Every foot scraped on a jagged mussel shell was a panic and a promise never to return. Everyone in Jersey has a friend whose profile pic was taken on the beach. Everyone owns flip-flops. If you wear flip-flops here, you might also wear long sleeves and pants because it's never the wrong time to wear flip-flops unless it's winter. And even then, if you are white, you can. Doesn't make sense to me, but it's part of your culture, I guess. We have a thing called pork roll. It's like Spam finally got its shit together and asked Bacon to be its domestic partner. It's like occasionally Bacon and Spam invite sausage over to spice things up a little. They are always courteous and respect sausage's boundaries. If you're from here and you move, this is what your people will pack in dry ice and mail to you. If you garden here and plant a tomato just once, you'll always have tomatoes. The errant two-leaved sprouts will volunteer themselves until they are a tangle of red flesh for you. It's unusual for a local to die in the riptide. We know that being pulled out is more tiring than it appears, that it is an erosion of strength as much as it is a deluge of salt water. Every year, it's a green thing that volunteers its body. There is a towel, usually on the beach, empty, a cooler with a half-eaten breakfast sandwich swaddled in wax paper and congealed grease, flip-flops with no crease or footprint in them, words, "I know how to swim," hovering over it all. The bodies are scraped, dragged against the bottom, against every sharp thing in her. The panic of the dead tourist never lasts longer than the tourist season itself. Every one from here has a story about a dead body, about a green thing dragged from the water or washing up on shore like some foreign seaweed. We have a sense of humor, but not everything is funny. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. And Christine Salvatore will take us out. Thank you, Christine, for closing down the reading today. Theme is New Jersey.
So I was debating if I had the guts to read this poem that I've been working on that isn't even typed up yet because I work in a notebook first. And then Nicole's poem said almost exactly what a line in here says about locals. And so I'm gonna do it. I don't know how it's gonna go, but I'm gonna do it. It doesn't even have a title yet, but maybe it's New Jersey. It might be, actually, the title might be Brigantine, New Jersey, where I was born and raised. I've turned over clamshell after empty clamshell on this stretch of my mother's beach. I cannot find her anywhere. Her energy not gone, but dissipated. My breath caught in the salt wind, the same wind that has stolen my voice since I was a child. Not a place for skipping stones or sailing kites. Our island is rough on every edge. How many times was I tossed in the Atlantic waves, tumbled until I'd lost sense of up, sense of out. Maybe I knew that fear of drowning was part of this life. It was rarely the locals that the paramedics pulled from the surf. Somehow those waves always spit us back up. We had other ways of drowning, of disappearing, of turning up in the wrong place, wrong time, dead or badly shaken. Maybe every shoreline has a seedy side, but only an inlet away from the East Coast casino town made our paths darker, our failure dimmer. How many of us made it out? How many chose to come back? I don't have a taste for the fish of these waters, but the clams my father shucked on the back patio and fed me raw, only the salt of the shores. We can't bury our dead here, only on the mainland, miles beyond the bridges that link us. When the virus came here last, it was not because we are hardier, just more isolated. That year of no traveling, no music festivals, no gatherings of any kind, we learned what it meant to nest, to settle into a home, to watch its dust settle and cracks form. We clung to books and old movies, home-cooked meals, and one another. The dog was never happier and gave our days purpose. We got our news briefings, got comfort in long conversations about the past. We didn't worry about the future. We were careful with the mail, readjusted what we saw as foreign and outsider. The work was endless and harder and less personal. We stopped questioning what we didn't know and questioned and said what we did know and used to know, like whether we should vote or help a stranger. There were fewer choices and more rules in 2020. Sorry, that was a little bit flubbed.
There is no need at all for you to apologize. That was wonderful. And I think you gave us the line that kind of sums up this experience, which is how many chose to come back, right? And come back to these themes. This has been Playing the Scales, a poetry event at the 2020 Collingswood Book Festival. The themes are 3 poets, and by the way, Lamont Steptoe never showed up, or else he would have been part of this, but I will reach out to him as soon as this event is over, make sure he's okay. I hope it was just a technical difficulty. But I want to thank the 3 poets here, Nicole Homer, Christine Salvatore, Paul Victor Winters. The themes, you just heard them cycle through. There were 9 in total, 9. They were science, music, justice, flightless birds, doorknobs, wildness and or calcification, newspapers, bones, and New Jersey. Thank you, you 3 poets. Thanks to Tammy Polino and Sharon and everyone else who runs the Collingswood Book Festival. I'm DJ Ward, your intrepid host for this adventure. Take care, and tomorrow, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, Scottish Rite Mansion in Collingswood, a live poetry event featuring Pulitzer Prize winner Gregory Barlow. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.